What do you do when you're stuck in an endless cycle of violence? Do you try to find a way out? Or do you just keep on throwing yourself at it over and over again, getting a little better and hoping that this time around you know what you're doing in order to get out? I'm betting Subaru from ReZero would be really feeling this intro right now. But regardless, this is Loop Hero. It is $14.99, comes out on Steam today, Thursday, March 4th, 2021, and is available for $14.99. It's a card-based roguelike that's a little bit different from normal because you're sort of out of the equation, at least the actual battle portion. All you're doing is setting up the field for your hero to take over. Battle is automated, and you just watch and try to help him out a little bit where you can, because you're influencing the field more than anything else, and him a little bit. But before I begin this review, this key was obtained from the publisher, Devolver Digital, for the purposes of review. That won't change my opinion of the game in the end, but you should know that because of FTC guidelines, as well as the whole morals thing, you know? If I show you a sample run the game more than anything else, because there's a lot of elements to it, and I can discuss, all the pluses and the minuses, but without the context of the timeline on things, it will be a little bit hard for you to grasp, so it's better just to show you a run, or at least a little bit of an edited run. To make progress in the game, you're going to have to go on expeditions. These will get you resources for your village back home, but in particular, it's how you make progress in the game because you need to learn more about the world, and in order to do that, you need to take down bosses, and in order to take down bosses, you got to go on expeditions. In this case, I'm on expedition number 3, aka chapter 3. Enemies have a bunch of abilities, they have strengths, they have resources that I can gather, but I'll get into all that in a little bit when I start the run. But I gotta make a decision first. I'm not gonna go into these yet, I'll explain those more, but I have 3 classes I can choose. I could choose my warrior, which is a basic class. It has, a sword, a shield, it's able to do damage in a more standard way, it has armor, and as you can see, it has a bunch of stats related to it. Now this is the basic class, and I don't want to show that because yeah, it would give you an idea of what the base gameplay is, but I want to show you a little bit more creative side of it. I can go with the Necromancer, which is summoning actual skeletons to fight for you. You don't actually fight. That has strengths and disadvantages to it. The fact is that, well, they're fighting for you, but if they go down, you are left all by yourself, and until you can get one up, you're going to have some problems. But I want to start with the Rogue. The Rogue is the most interesting one to me because he has a little bit of a different loop in terms of how he gains equipment, but the biggest thing that I like about him is that he gets a 10% bonus for any effect for every equipped item with the same effect, which if you get a lot of the same effect, you can really get a huge bonus, whether it be crit chance, whether it be damage to everybody. So let's go with him. Every expedition starts off with a procedurally generated map like what you see right here. And that map will have basic properties to it. It'll have a specific length. It could be longer, could be shorter, but it's within a specific range. It won't be on the outskirts of things. It will have a certain amount of space in the middle, but it will have different types of paths. They may have, these sort of Cs. You may have, just straight pathways. It's always different, which is going to play a part in my strategy. Now, I haven't started yet because I paused the game, but before I even begin, because of the upgrades I have back at Village, I can equip my guy with a little bit of equipment to start off with. My rogue can equip 2 weapons, he's a rogue after all, armor, and some boots. Fortunately, I brought warrior equipment along, and that shield, completely useless. But there's also equipment that I can't seem to equip, like a helmet or an amulet. Unless if I place this arsenal tile. You do get a choice later on in the game to bring on a sort of special tile to help you out at the start. In this case, if I place an arsenal down, I'll place it right here, it opens up an equipment slot, which I can now equip an amulet, because we all know that arsenals and buildings are allowing me to equip things. Okay, yeah, that's a little bit weird, but we'll get to that in a little bit. So, let's go, huh? Now you're probably wondering yourself, okay, what do you do for combat? What buttons do you click? You don't click anything. You click the space bar to make you go forward. You hit the tab button to change between speeds. But other than that, in terms of combat, it's all up to your hero. That's it. Sure, there's things you can do to make your hero better, which I will get to in a little bit. We're just going to let him do one run here in order to, you know, show you what exactly is going on. As you can see on the bottom, I'm collecting tiles, and I'm also collecting trophies, which is a specific feature to the rogue, which I will explain in a little bit once he's done with this loop. As the game is called Loop Hero, you're going in a loop. You're going around and around and around. You may be wondering, why are you going around and around? Well, you're trying to learn more about the world. And as you kill enemies and you're trying to figure out things, you learn a little bit more, a little bit of information, which in essence is the tiles and the equipment here. All right, I get back to village. I've done my loop. Oh, look at that. I just got a bunch of equipment. See, he gets a bunch of trophies for killing enemies, and those trophies end up being equipment for him. So I can now equip, let's see, I have a level 3 amulet. I have weapons here. I got a level 2 and level 1, but this level 1 axe is better than everything, so I'll equip the level 2 in the other slot. Level 1 armor, level 2 armor. Gonna go with the level 2 armor. I do have a choice between a level 2 amulet and a level 3 amulet. One having 40 HP, but a critical damage chance, and one with 77 HP. Normally in the early going, I recommend just going with basic levels, because in the early going, it's really like almost doubling, tripling the amount of stats that it gives you. And so I'd rather have the stats right now. Now, these tiles on the bottom, what do you think they do? Well, they do a couple of things. First, they give you some ways to get resources. So, for example, this ruins. This existence of this civilization ended long before the Lich's curse, but it can still remain of use to you. Every time I visit it, I get a random resource shard, which will be used to upgrade things back at home. But it also spawns a scorch worm every 2 days, so I gotta be careful. I'm gonna place this somewhere where I can easily maybe kill things and maybe take advantage of it later on. Okay. What about a village? Ooh, it heals 30 HP upon entering, and it gives me a quest, which means that I could probably get more equipment or better things, right? I'm definitely gonna want to place that. And sometimes tiles have extra elements to it, like a wheat field. Can only be placed next to a village, but oh hey, 10 plus HP to anyone entering it. Sweet. But it's not just the paths that you deal with, it's also the surrounding area. Sometimes it's along the paths. This Roan Lantern decreases the maximum number of monsters on adjacent tiles. So, let me think about that. Maybe I want to place this in a place where it can maximize the minimum amount of monsters. So right there. Or you get something that you can place in the big world, like in this space here. This thicket, by placing it, my hero gets faster. And the idea behind that, at least in my interpretation of the story, is that your hero has learned this information, and now he knows that forest is there. And so now he can use that to his advantage. In terms of the thicket, he knows how he can get through the thicket so he can attack people faster, get through it faster. And we'll place a little bit more of the thicket down here. Ooh, a treasury. Gives a random resource after placing anything on an adjacent tile. But I can't be... okay, I can't be put near anything. I'll place it right here for now. We'll leave the vampire mansions for a little bit, because I want to get myself a little bit more time before I deal with some vampires. Or in particular, how I'm going to use the vampires. Ooh, a river. All right, let's take the damage. Rivers will double the effects of adjacent landscape tiles, but I gotta start over here. Okay, so a landscape tile, lowers every creature's HP by 0.5. Oh, now it probably increases it to 1. That's useful. And some rocks, we'll just place some rocks down here. We'll place some rocks down here. Beacon, yeah, I want to be able to attack faster, so I'll place that there and I'll put more wheat fields down. You know what? And I'll place one vampire mansion down. How about that? We'll place it right here. Vampires will come out in the area when you have to deal with other enemies, and each of the tiles have their own unique aspects to it. Some of them, they'll just spawn enemies. Some of them will have specific effects when around other tiles. So, like, the vampire doesn't show up on the field, but if there's another enemy there, they'll come and help them out, which obviously is going to be a problem for you because sometimes vampires, they can hurt. Okay, so got some more stuff here. Let's place some more rivers. Let's place some more... Oh, we can't play more wheat fields because our adjacent tiles with this guy's done. We'll place some sand dunes. We'll start to try to fill out this this guy right here, this treasury, because if we fulfill it, we may get some better equipment. There's a little hint for what's going to happen later on. Oh, I went to the village, and because I went to the village and got the quest, now one of the enemies is stronger, but I can get equipment from it when I bring the quest back, you know, when everything goes well. The idea here is that you're trying to maximize what you can do in each run. So in this case, I'm actually going to exchange my second mace here because now, as a rogue, I get more bonuses when I have all these similar aspects. So this damage to all is going to get boosted because I have 2 of them at this point. So I'd rather have that at this point than anything else. All right, let's place down some deserts. Let's place down a thicket. Let's place down another thicket. Let's place down a... Yeah, that's good. That's good. Okay, so at random points, I'm going to jump forward a little bit to make sure that this video isn't horribly long. One of the things that I like about Loop Hero and the strategy that's involved is that there's a lot of room for experimentation. The fact is that depending on your run, depending on what you see in the overall picture of your map, your strategy may change. I come into this specific one with my rogue trying to focus on attack speed and trying to focus on weakening enemies enough so that I'm not dealing with too many at a time, but I'm also maximizing everything else that I can, you know, deal with them with. The fact is that less enemies, easier to get through, less damage that I'm taking. But I'm not necessarily focusing on HP or necessarily focusing on vampirism, taking back HP. But in situations like this, where there's 4 enemies and they're all coming at me at once, maybe I need to do something about that. Maybe I need to change how I deal with things. And that actually changes a lot run to run, even with the same strategy, because there's a randomization element. These cards that get dealt, you may not get, you know, any vampire stuff that you want to put down. You may not get ruins. You may not get a bunch of forests for you to place. And in order to increase your attack speed, so you have to adjust. And adjusting makes a huge difference, especially when you run into a situation that you maybe are unfamiliar with. There is experience at certain point in the game. There are things that you have to unlock. Leveling is one of them. You have to upgrade your village back at home. Let's see, a rat wolf coming to my battle. Yeah, that could actually help me a lot. Loop HP for adjacent roadside tile when passing a tile. Yeah. Fighting against 3 or more. Yeah, now let's go with the helper in battle, because he could take a little bit of damage for us if he does come in. That randomization, even after 30 hours, was still prevalent. Like, yeah, I was getting base strategies down, but I'm also was learning new things and trying to adjust things and also experimenting with things. Because here's the thing. There are things in this game that you can maximize that you don't know at first. The game doesn't teach you a whole hell of a lot. And sometimes you learn just by doing something a little bit differently. Let's see here. Let's put down this equipment here because we want to maximize our stuff. Ooh, level 6, yeah. Like, now I'm at the point where I know that I want to maximize the effects that I have on things, because at this point, I've learned that being able to use the bonus from the rogue is important at this stage of the game, as opposed to the beginning where, yeah, at times it was just the raw stats I needed. Sometimes I don't need as much HP or attack speed if I bring down that wolf here, so I could adjust on the fly a little bit. And here's the thing, there will be situations that you'll be put into that you won't have any idea how to deal with to begin with. I'm gonna fast forward here to one of those situations. Okay, I fast forward a little bit, got some more equipment and everything, but I was waiting to get more forest because you're probably sitting there going, okay, well, you've got all these forests and they're giving all this attack speed, so there's no reason for you to just not put all these forests down all the time, right? They're always gonna help you. Maybe. Another forest. Another forest. Wait, what? There are certain events and certain things that happen in the game that the game doesn't tell you that can end up affecting things. Here, a new village has occurred. Oh, that's great, right? It spawns training dummies and may have a negative effect after certain points, especially if those enemies are strong. And that happens with almost everything. Remember the village and the vampire mansion that I had before? Let me do something here. Let me play another village down. Of course, villages help me a lot, right? Oh. A bandit cap appears for every 2 village tiles. Okay, but I could deal with that, right? I wonder what happens if I place a vampire mansion near a village. I mean, I would want to do that, right? Get a bunch of HP after I fight the vampires. Wait, what? A ransacked village. Now, you may think, oh shit, that means that's a horrible thing. You know, it spawns a bunch of enemies that you have to deal with. Except, like you see here, it transforms into something useful after a bunch of loops. So if I could take care of them, I may get a huge bonus of something. And that's the kind of exploration with this card system and the type of exploration that you can do with the strategies in the game. This is where the game shines. Just trying new things, even strategies that you had before, refining them just a little bit with the equipment that you've had and the equipment that you bring along makes a huge difference. Right now, part of the reason why I've got vampires and I didn't take other tiles was the fact that some of my equipment back home deals with the idea of, hey, guess what? I do better against undead. I've got a bunch of things that help me deal with the undead, so yeah, of course I'm gonna want more enemies that are undead as opposed to maybe like spiders or anything along those lines. And so you always have to consider, well, wait, do I really want to place the forest down? What happens if I put all these sand dunes down around this treasury? Oh, I got new equipment from it because I centered around everything about it. Granted, there's a downside to that. You have no idea what you're doing at times because you're just placing things randomly, and sometimes you don't really have a hint of what it does. There are ways to deal with that as you do get upgrades later on that can help you learn that information. But that's what I had the most fun about in this game. Sure, I'm not attacking things, and I'm going to die sooner or later most of the time because, you know, I made a mistake and I didn't take the right equipment, or I didn't get the right equipment and it just so happened that, you know, things didn't work out for me. But I never felt like the game horribly screwed me over. Like, I never felt that the game was sitting there and being like, yeah, no, we're just going to screw you just because we can. And that goes a long way in a game like this. Now, granted, right now, every loop, these enemies are getting stronger, and I'm taking more damage. And I'm looking at that village that I created here and those enemies, and I'm like, oh boy, I don't know if I could take them. I'm already taking damage for those guys. Well, luckily I have this Oblivion tile and I can get rid of it. Granted, it sort of sucks because now it spawns a bunch of scarecrows and stuff like that, but you know what? I'm willing to do that because guess what? I don't think I was ready for those guys. As you can see, oh boy, we're in trouble. We're in trouble. Now, we are drinking potions and getting HP from stuff, but as you can see here, it's maybe not making the biggest difference. Sometimes those better upgrades can really come and screw you later on. In fact, I think I'm gonna die here. Come on. Live. 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 I don't think I'm gonna live. Yep, I'm gonna poison. I'm gonna die. I'm dead. And I only get a certain amount of the resources and a certain amount of things that come from that. That is Loop Hero in a nutshell. You're going to make mistakes. You are going to do things that it's just not going to work out for you, but that's okay. You just come back and try again. Okay, that run didn't go so well, but how do I prepare for the next run? Those resources that I gathered in that run can be used to upgrade my village. You start off with a simple campfire. Some HP to, restore when you come back to that campfire, aka that little campfire you start off in each loop. But as you go, you get more resources, as you see here, and you can, upgrade yourself. Like, for example, get a potion maker's hut, and also that wonderful sound. Some more potions that you could bring along in order to help you out. Or the ability to unlock a new class, or bring you more supplies in terms of the equipment that you can bring along, or give you an encyclopedia to help you along. That's the thing. As you go along, you build these places up, you get more of those resources, and the big thing about this is that in the run, when you choose to leave, you can choose to leave at certain points. When you get back to your campfire, you can take all your resources as opposed to taking a segment of your resources. When to run and when to actually keep going is a huge part of this game, because the only time you can exit a run that you're in right now is at the actual start point. Now, what other things can this help? Well, supplies. This is my camp supply menu. These are the little tiny things that I could do to help myself in each run. So, for example, I have a bunch of tools. Get a little bit more HP every time I pass the campfire. Get a little bit of armor. Lowers the resource penalty for dying, so I get more stuff. Plus 2 HP for every armor point the hero has. You can really customize this. If I were to go a warrior and just wanted to be with armor, I'd want more mixed nuts, right? I'd want more, maybe potion healing power. I may not necessarily want things like, I don't know, I may not necessarily want the regeneration per second if I'm just taking hits. Granted, I have a certain amount of items that I can use in every run, 33 in this case, and so I may need to craft more items or dismantle them for resources. There's an encyclopedia which lets me unlock information about what's going on. Granted, this is one of the newer ones, and I'm still not exactly sure what I'm unlocking and how I unlock it at this point, but neither here nor there. Statistics, stuff like that. There's just a lot of ways you can build up your stuff and end up really customizing each run to what you want to do. I will say that the class differences are appreciated here. The fact is that it's not just equipment, it really comes down to strategy. As you see, the Necromancer is trying to use the skeletons, and the skeletons, you can spawn a couple, you can spawn a bunch, you can go through a bunch of different strategies on whether to overwhelm with numbers or just with the strength of your skeletons, but it does have its own template in terms of what it is good at and what it's not good at. For example, Necromancers in the early game are pretty good. They can overrun anything, and in terms of equipment, they can do reasonable. But once they hit a wall where the enemy is able to do enough damage over time to keep the skeletons down, you'll find that your Necromancer is falling really quickly, and trying to predict when to get out with resources with the Necromancer is difficult. It's a lot more difficult than with the Warrior, and a little bit more difficult than with the Rogue. And so it's almost like it's a big risking reward thing with the Necromancer of when to use it and when to not. And that's good. That's good. That does lead to different play styles and different types of gameplay in question, even though you're doing pretty much the same thing. I will say that there are little things that really would improve the overall experience for me. For example, the Necromancer is somebody who wants a different set of tiles. There are certain tiles that the Necromancer absolutely doesn't want. He doesn't want an outpost because the actual archers will shoot at him, which, okay, I'm not going to put something that's going to shoot at me, even though they're going to shoot at enemies as well. With that said, you have to go in every time and change things over and over again in order to, optimized for the Necromancer, and I sort of wish there was just sort of a, oh, this is the loadout for the Necromancer, this is the loadout for the, Warrior, this is the loadout for the Rogue, and that would have made things a lot better in my mind. Now, I haven't beat the game. I do have around, I want to say 30 to 40 hours in the game right now. I know my Steam says probably like 60 at this point, but honestly, I let the game on at certain points. I let it out overnight one night. So, yeah, I haven't beaten the game, but I've got a good idea of what the game has to offer. Right now that there's only 3 classes, I feel like there's more that could be done here, just with the different types of gameplay here. And I'm assuming that they may be ones later on, but right now it's just like, the Necromancer's nice. I would have liked maybe a ranged character, maybe, something a little bit different in terms of some of these other things here. Granted, that's conjecture. I don't know if that's the case or not. The other parts that I really have an issue with in terms of Loop Hero is probably just, I don't want to say the monotony of things, because part of the gameplay loop is the monotony. It's doing the same thing over and over again. But having those presentation elements that change things little by little over runs, maybe, maybe spawning in a different color skeleton would actually go a long way. The game is, I don't want to say the game's boring to look at and the game's presentation doesn't suit it. It does do the job, and the animations are reasonable. It's just that over time, you end up just not looking at it because you're seeing a lot of the same thing over and over again, and you know what you're almost expecting at this point. And because you don't control certain things, you just don't want to look at it anymore. It's almost like you're listening to the audio just to see if things are happening still. It's also little things like the UI, for example. I have to say, like, the health bar being so small compared to everything else. Like, the equipment being large, you have a lot of space that you are doing with the tiles here, but, like, the stats, I wish the stats menu was in a different, like, sub-menu. Because, like, the health, I want to see that health right away. I want to see what my health is right now. That's what I need to know, because I need to know when I may need to make a decision. The stats, on the other hand, yeah, they're important, but are they important enough to be taking up a third of this bar? Not on a day-to-day basis. It's when I need the equipment, and I really wish that I could change that just a tiny bit. And frankly, it's just one of those things where, like, the music is going to be basic for a game like this. You're going to put a YouTube video on in the background because guess what? It's not going to keep your attention there. With that said, I wish that it just had a little more in the presentation element, and I think that does drag the game down a tiny bit in the overall experience. A lot of the problems I have with Loop Hero, I feel like are fixable in terms of they're all little things. Like, I like the strategy, I like the elements here, and the little things about that may annoy people, like, not telling them entirely what's going on to start off with. I understand the decision making behind that. A lot of what I have problems with in the overall picture are like UI things, like, information that and presentation elements that I feel like can be refined over time. That, yeah, you need to make more assets, yeah, you need to do a couple of things here and there, but really, in the end, they are something that doesn't change the, I don't want to say base code of the gameplay, it still changes things, but it's something I feel like you're not overhauling an entire system on. You can add to it and add to the base here rather than, like, just have to flip things on its head. The base here is fun, and I probably will be playing this here and there along with all the other card and roguelike games that I play because I'm addicted to these type of games. This is sort of my crack cocaine, especially because I cannot pay attention to it for a little bit and, go and watch a video and, have it on in the background. In the end, Loop Hero is a game that is going to be addictive for a certain type of player. I mean, if you like card-based roguelikes, you probably already bought this game even before this review. But regardless, there's a lot of strategy involved here, even if you don't have full control of what's going on. there's a lot of exploration of strategies and a lot of refinement that can be done to make a powerful rogue that can attack all the time, or necromancers who bring an army of skeletons that just decimate the enemy. You're going to make mistakes, but you're also going to enjoy it a lot of the time. With that said, I do wish the game did have a little bit more control at certain points. Randomization can go a long way, but it could also feel like the game is just not giving you the right tools, like being a rogue and just not getting a good second weapon. And yes, the presentation is simple, but I wish the game would have done a little bit more in terms of some of the enemies and presentation types. Overall though, it's a game that's solid for the price, and honestly, you're going to get a big bang for buck out of. It's not excelling in terms of maybe the Slay the Spires or the Griftlands of the world in being the game that you will come back to over and over and over again, but it's a game that you will enjoy, especially if you want to do other things while playing it. That's why Loop Hero gets an 86 out of 100 for me, making it a solid buy unless you're hurting for cash. But that does not take into account my enhancer system, which takes the more subjective elements of games and places a game in a specific spot for you. Look at these enhancers. If you fall into one of the following categories, add or subtract that score to the main score. If the first digit of your score changes, then refer to this chart in order to see where the game lies in the buyability rating for you. As you can see, most people will want to pick up the game, especially at its low price. But certain people, yeah, they may want to skip it. And because this is a new policy of mine, because this is a review copy, I will be giving a copy of the game away in my Discord. Yes, my Discord. You'll have to join the Discord in order to be able to be entered into the actual, well, drawing. Mostly because it's a lot easier to find people on Discord than trying to find them via email, Steam, so on and so forth. So that's the first step. The second step is you gotta give me a comment on this video saying how I can improve this review style in particular. This is a little different for me in terms of the style that I've gone for here, so I'm interested to see exactly what you have to say about it. Anyway, this is the second video of the day, so yeah, this is Dragnix signing out. I'm gonna probably sleep for a long time after this video because I was probably up late editing both of them. For now, this is me signing out, and as always, keep on gaming.